Hello, everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. It is Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. It is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. So maybe this stream will seem shorter than normal. I'm not quite sure, but it should be a good one either way. Because today we have a machine, a mini PC sent to us by a company we've never looked at before called GMKtec. And it's all sealed in the box. I've never opened it. I don't know anything about them. They have several different models. They sent us this one to start with, and depending on how that goes, perhaps we'll see other makes and models, or sorry, same make but different model at different price points and different purposes. This is a budget machine, and it's designed to be for light computer use or generic computer use in the sense of surfing the net, checking email, Microsoft Office, light office work, streaming to your TV as a home media center, something like that. It's not intended as a gaming machine. It's not intended to be, more than what it is at its price point. So, of course, depending on how much you're spending, that should give you an idea of the kind of machine you're buying and the type of expectations you should have on how it should perform. Now, that's not to say that the cheaper machines perform poorly, but rather that they may perform up to the needs of the user who wouldn't need to spend any more than that if they're not using it. So thank you to Alan Lindas, who's contributed $7.77 during before today's podcast started or broadcast started. Alan says, "Hello, Carey in chat. Here's my early fee." Carey, if you want to use my early fee for a fresh cold beverage, please do so. Your choice. I'm on top of it. Thank you, Alan. And hello to all my friends in blue and in green. Thanks for hanging out with me today. There's Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat. Says hello. Welcome in, Planet Cryos. David Moore has now been a member for 11 months here on the channel. He says hello. Hi, David. Thank you for continuing your membership here and supporting the channel. Paul O'Brien with €5 says hello, Carey and Marlena. Have a drink on me. Will do, Paul, perhaps after the show. Thank you guys so much for, again, supporting this channel. Now, today, I will, as always, in full disclosure, I let you know when I'm purchasing things or when things are sent to me for free. But when things are sent to me for free, there is no contract. There's no paperwork. It's all done on a gentleman's agreement and trust, which means a lot to me. And so, hopefully the beginning of a beautiful relationship, long-lasting relationship with GMKtec. Let's hope what we've got in there is good stuff. I'm very much looking forward to this. GMKtec sent the machine at no cost to me for me to review, and I am free to review it how I want, when I want, and say what I want. All right, those are the kind of reviews that we want to do here. And if companies don't like that, then we'll just go buy their product and do it anyway. And that's the beauty of this, is we're not tied to any corporation like other big tech channels are to tell us what we can or cannot say without fear of jeopardizing our income stream. So as long as you guys are supporting the channel, we have the freedom to explore whatever we want to, whatever we can afford. So we're going to unwrap this and plug it in and see what it's like for the very first time and see how it varies and differs from other models that are available in the mini PC world. Thank you to Sarge Tech with the $5 super chat, right on. And thank you to Camera Girl for today's thumbnail and also correcting some errors I made in the video description and notes. There's a lot that goes into the video description and notes, guys, and I think a lot of it's just, I don't know if people don't read it, but there's so many little details for each product. And if you're doing videos every day, and every product's got its own list of features and websites and sources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's tags and titles, thumbnails, all that just to get the video ready. And then you've got the video itself. So thanks to Camera Girl for her assistance in getting these set up. Now, there will be a video, of course, on Friday at 1 o'clock. We always do videos on Friday at 1 o'clock Pacific time, every Friday. And please join us. Fridays are usually something special, something I save for the end of the week. So I hope you will tune in every Friday at 1 o'clock and join us. And I hope you will pop into the live chat and say hello. Even if that's not something you normally do, we'd love to hear from our lurkers to just pop in and say hello and let us know where you're watching us from. We're broadcasting live around the world, and it's always thrilling to me to see people in other countries watching this content live. I couldn't have done this when I was a teenager. This would have cost, $40 a minute or something back in the 80s. So I'm totally thrilled by it. So give me a thrill. And if you enjoy content like this and you want to see more like it, please give this video a like and subscribe. I'm going to get that out of the way right now. So just hit the, there's nothing to click there, but go ahead and hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you can be made aware anytime we go live or post a new video. Your support in that area is appreciated, and it costs you nothing. It's just one click. When people can't be bothered to do that, don't be surprised when your favorite channels produce less and less content. It's a lot of effort, and asking for somebody to just click their mouse and they can't be bothered is why a lot of channels end up fading away. They just pod fade is the term when we use in podcasts. You're not going to get rid of me that easily, but the amount of content I'm able to make is based on viewer interest, the number of views I'm getting, and the ability to afford to make the content, which means either cooperation from companies sending me product or from your contributions, as this is a viewer-supported channel. You can determine the life of this channel, whether or not it stays where it's at, dips down and less content, or climbs higher with more variety and more content. It's all in your hands. All right, I guess we're about ready to get started here. Just taking a look here in the chat. Richard Palmentier says, check my PayPal. All right, well, let's take a look here at the smartphone and see what we're missing before we get started. We'll get all caught up here. Let's see. Yes, indeed. Richard Palmentier at $20 via PayPal. He says this is to help support the channel and keep up the great content. Well, right on. Thank you for leading by example, Richard. I appreciate you, my friend. And let's get started with today's video. This right here in this box is the GMKtec. This is called a NucBox G1. And I don't know much about it other than it is an entry-level machine. And in that $200 range, we'll take a deeper dive into this here in a minute. In fact, you know what? Before I open it, let's take a look at their website and let's see how they describe it so we have an idea of what's in this box before we open it. That's probably what I should do. So let me go over to their website where the link is in the video notes below this video. And let's go to window capture here on OBS. Turn off camera 1. There it is. Okay, so this is an Intel 12th generation Alder Lake N95 mini PC. Now the N95 is Intel's new naming for Celeron. Now the N95 is on the lower end, so there's an N100, I think there's an N105, and as the number gets bigger, the performance gets better, but as long as it starts with the letter N, it's going to be a Celeron, so it's going to be a budget-based processor. Now this processor has 4 cores with 4 threads. There's no hyper-threading on a Celeron. It uses Intel 7 nanometer process, which is technical gobbledygook, and then there's a TDP of just 15 watts. So if you're somebody who's environmentally conscious and you want a machine that's very low power usage, low impact on the environment, this is exactly what it's designed to be. It's got 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, depending on how it's ordered. It's DDR4. It's going to be single channel because it's a Celeron processor. And it can have a maximum of 32 gigs of RAM. And it's going to be one chip. The 512 gig or 1 terabyte of SSD, I don't know what kind of SSD, if it's SATA. Oh, it actually says it's an M.2 NVMe Gen 3. It says it can have a max 2 terabyte. We keep seeing this over and over and over again, where all the mini PC manufacturers keep repeating back this old information. I suspect there is no maximum 2 terabyte limitation on a modern computer. I think it's just outdated information they need to update. And we can verify that and see if a 4 terabyte drive will work. Although it wouldn't make sense to put a 4 terabyte drive in a machine like this unless maybe, I don't know, You were hosting files on it for your media PC, but that still wouldn't host very many files compared to a NAS. It's got Bluetooth 5.2 and Wi-Fi 6. That's good to see. A lot of the budget machines are going to be a generation behind with Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 4 or 4.3. So we're not quite at 6E and Bluetooth 5.3, but we're very, very close to what the latest and greatest is. And that's impressive to see on a budget box. It's got Windows 11 Pro installed, and it does support Linux. It's got the ability to display 2 video outputs that are HDMI at 4K 60 Hertz. It's got 2 USB 3.2 Type A ports. Sorry, 4 of those. Those are going to be Gen 1 5 gigabit per second. And it's got a headphone jack. It's got 2.5 gig LAN jack. And we have a couple different models here. We've got the 8 gig model with 512 storage and the 16 gig model with 1 terabyte of storage. And then different plug types for Europe, US, UK, and it looks like Australia. So right now, the high-end version of this is $219.89. This is a flash sale they're having for the next, nearly 4 days, a little less than 4 days left on the sale. And the cheaper version at just a few dollars cheaper at $189.89. That's free shipping. And that's about all I can say about it. Oh, there's more. We've got a YouTube video here that looks like it's, I can't tell what language that is. It looks like Chinese, so Mandarin or Cantonese. They've got a review. They've got some information about the unit here. Scroll down. Got 1 RAM module that is replaceable. It's not soldered in. And an M.2 module that is also replaceable and not soldered in. So it is upgradable. It's an all-metal, anti-skid, anti-fingerprint design, durable outer metal frame. Well, that's good. So not plastic. Happy to see that. Here's what the unit looks like on the front and what it looks like on the back. Got some certifications. They've got a hassle-free 7-day return policy, 12-month warranty, always-on customer service, site-wide free shipping. If you've got any experience with owning any GMKtec products and you want to share that with us here in the chat room, we'd love to hear from you about what it's been like owning one. And if you buy another, if you'd recommend them. They're a new brand to us, and we're very interested in anybody's experience, because this will be our first experience with them, and we want it to be a good one, but we don't know. George Schloika contributes $10 in Super Chat. Thank you, George. James Rasso says the N95 TDP is 15 watts, the N100's TDP is 6 watts. So I guess what you're saying is if they were truly environmentally concerned, they would have made it an N100. I would have preferred if it was an N100 personally, but I'm not quite sure how that affects the price. And, you know, in this world of computers, you do get what you pay for. So let's find out what's in the box. Now, me personally, I don't give a rat's behind about how many watts a CPU is unless it comes to cooling concerns. So like with our good friend Buster, we're building that train PC for him, and we couldn't keep it cool with the high-end processor. We had to go to something that was lower power, or it was just constantly overheating, and the fan was making a heck of a racket. So that's my only concern with regards to the environment. Now, if I'm opening up a data center, like Google or Amazon Web Services or something, well, being concerned for the environment it should be legally required if it's not, because the sheer amount of power that they consume to process your Google searches and your Amazon shopping, that stuff consumes a lot of power. All right, let's see what we got in the box here. Yeah, so you with your computer at home, you're not doing much. That's all I'm saying. Not by comparison to what the big companies do. All right, it's got a nice presentation. We open the box up here, and little cutaway to get your finger in there and pull the machine out. Oh yeah, it's metal. I feel the cold of the steel or the aluminum. Plastic bottom. Okay. Let me bring this over to the camera. We'll take a close look together. Yep, just like it's pictured on the website. I like when the pictures match the product. There's our 2 HDMI ports, our 2.5 gig Ethernet, 2 Type A USBs there, and 2 more there. Remember, they said they had 4. And then up here on the front, do the peel. There it is. There it is. Okay. See what else we have in the box. Set this down. I will say a lot of the budget machines are flimsy, plasticky. It's nice to see a quality frame. I'm sure that that adds to the expense of production. And if that matters to you, I mean, it matters to me, but it may not matter to you. Then it may be worth considering when you're price shopping and comparing different products from different manufacturers. There's a lot to choose from in this arena. So here we've got a little envelope. Not quite sure what this is. Got a little pamphlet here. Geek Modern Creativity, NucBox G1 User Manual. Okay, so just some basics, technical specifications and how to plug it in, and warranty. That's it, just those 4 pages. After that, it's all the same in different languages. So just put that back where it was, because we're not going to use that today. If I can figure out how to put the tab A in slot A, we can move on. This could take a while. I did it. Okay, the rest of the box, we've got, 2 boxes. One box has power adapter with a barrel connector. And once again, there's no name of the product on the AC adapter, so I would get a Sharpie marker and write GMKtec G1, or I'd get a label maker and I'd write a label on here, because these things, if they get thrown in a box, please don't do that. If you throw all your AC adapters in a box because you know you're organized, good luck figuring out what they go to. Just because the barrel plug fits isn't likely going to guarantee that that machine or thing you've plugged in is going to work. In fact, it's likely going to have smoke come out of it, and you will simultaneously break both the adapter and the thing you plugged into it. I cannot emphasize how important this is. These do not adjust. They're not self-adjusting. They put out a certain amount of voltage with a potential amount of amperage. And a lot of people think, well, the plug fits, it must be the right one. The death of many electronic products every single day because of that ignorance, simply because the manufacturer didn't put their name on the adapter. So because they didn't, it's up to you to do that, even if it takes getting a silver Sharpie marker and writing on it. Believe me, you will thank me in the future when those two things get separated. So if we want to take a look at the power requirements on the adapter, you'll see it's a 12 volt with a center positive polarity, and 1.5 amps total output. Okay, well, pretty standard stuff there. Some of these devices may be 9 volts, some may be other voltages, some may be higher amperages, wattages. Telling you, label the adapters. Plug that in here. Get that out of the way. What do we have? A warranty card, and that's all that's in this box. Let's see what's in box number 2. There, put the box in the box that was shipped to me in a box. Okay, what do we have? We have a VESA mounting bracket. That's if you want to mount this little mini PC behind your monitor. And we have an HDMI cable. Looks like about a 6-foot standard HDMI cable. And there are some screws in this bag with the VESA mount if you're going to use that. I don't use these personally. You can also use them to mount the computer against the side of a desk or a wall. If you wanted to do that, or you can just put it on your desk. It can be right side up. It can be upside down. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be oriented in any specific direction. It will work equally in any orientation. Okay, so we're done with that. Just set all that over there. Now we need to plug in a keyboard and a mouse, and we're going to turn this on for the very first time and see what our setup process looks like. Of course, we're going to be requiring some updates. So I'm not going to plug the internet into it yet until we get past the setup process. And I don't want to accidentally turn it on before I plugged everything in, so I'm leaving the power cable unplugged on purpose as the last thing I plug in. Doesn't matter which HDMI port you use. If you want to use the one on the other side, it's all up to you. That's it. We should be ready to do our first power on self-test here. So let me switch over to, let's see, HDMI input. That should be us right there. I will take camera 1. I'm going to put myself, what did I do wrong here? Seeing something. Turn off the window capture. HDMI input. Oh, I still have it set the other day to the, let's see what I did. Should be this port right here. Okay. And where was I? I was going to put myself in a corner. Let's do that now. Oh, right about there ought to be good. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug this in right over here. And we'll turn the power on. There's a little light that comes on. You know, power's on. It's dead silent. I don't hear anything. And here we go. I'm going to do a full screen view here for me. Oh, now I can see it. Okay, our Windows 11 is starting for the very first time. It takes us through the setup page. English, yes. United States, yes. US keyboard, yes. Alternate keyboard, no. Agree to the license agreement. I don't have to do the Shift F10 trick. It's going to let us go ahead and create our account. I'll set it up as user. Wait a minute. What's happening here? Username is user. Password is nothing. I think I was slapping on the keyboard too hard. And I turn off everything but location settings. Date and time can be set for us. It kept up to date at all times, so we don't have to worry about losing minutes over time. And if I ever want to do any searches about things near me, restaurants near me, I don't have to tell it where I am, so I prefer to keep the location settings on, just like you would on a cell phone. All right, this is going to take a few minutes, as it says, and then once we're up at the desktop, we can plug in the internet, and then we can go get our Windows 11 updates. Nick Poverman said he's got a GMKtec portable monitor that I use. It works with HDMI and USB-C. And the USB-C will work with a PC that has a USB-C out for video and power with one cable. Yeah, as do all portable monitors. But it's good to know that GMKtec makes more than just mini PCs. They're not a one-hit wonder, that they've got other products in the market. And apparently Nick is happy with his. Paul O'Brien wants me to check my email. Okay, we can do that while we're waiting. Let's see what's going on. Ah, yes, Paul O'Brien has contributed a $10 Amazon gift card. He says, thanks for all you do to educate, inspire, and inform everyone on PCs, add-ons, and everything in between. Master Carey Yoda. Are you saying I'm wrinkly and green? Well, that's okay. You give me a $10 Amazon card, you can do that. Thank you for supporting the channel, Paul. All right, since we're at the desktop, let me go ahead and plug the internet into it, and then we'll go grab our updates. I also am curious what version of Windows 11 we have installed, if it's going to be 22H2, 21H2. So we'll get that plugged in. And we'll go over here, right click. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Right click, we'll go to System. What's that out? Device name G1, Intel N95, 8 gigs of RAM, Windows 22H2. Very good, very good. And are we activated? See if Windows is activated. Well, I have to check Windows Update first because it booted up without the internet connected, and it has to have the internet to verify activation. So let's go ahead and move forward with that now. Just hit Windows Update and check for updates. So because it's 22H2, which is the latest version as of June of 2023 of Windows 11, there shouldn't be that many updates compared to if it was 21H2, which many PCs are still shipping with, which shocks me because that's a massive update that could take a while. So I'm glad to see that GMKtec has provided us with the latest version of Windows 11 Pro. I am pleased to see that we are not required to connect to the internet to create a Microsoft account, as some configurations require. We have a workaround for that, but we didn't have to use it. And we're seeing a number of driver updates from Intel listed there on the page, as well as some regular cumulative and security updates, which is, since 22H2 has come out, there's been some updates. That's to be expected. These will take a few minutes to download. And I don't want the computer going to sleep on us, so I'm going to go into the power plan. And I do that by just typing the word plan. And you'll see edit power plan is the first option here. And we just want to make sure that machine video won't turn off after 3 hours. And you never, ever want the computer to go to sleep unless you're trying to save on batteries. But since we're not running on batteries, I don't understand any benefit sleep mode offers unless you have batteries. These machines boot so fast, if you're done with it for the day, turn it off. If it's early in the afternoon and you're going to leave for a little bit and come back, just leave it on. Shut the monitor off. You're fine. Lawn Dog wants to know, if you mount this on the back of your monitor, how do you turn it on? You have to reach around. You have to reach around the back of the monitor anytime you want to plug anything into USB or turn it on. Yeah. Yep. Something to keep in mind if you want to move it out of sight and out of the way. Well, guess what? If you want to access it for any reason, you've moved it out of the sight and out of the way. So that may be a hassle for you to get to. Now, as far as USB goes, you could always plug a USB hub in, but the hub may be darn near as big as the mini PC that you're going to set on your desk anyway, unless your monitor's got a built-in USB hub. But if that's the case, your monitor costs more than your computer did. So, to each their own, whatever you want to do. Choose your path, pick your preference. There's no wrong answers. Pros and cons all the way around. Gary Tatum and Doman 2000 mentioned using Wake on LAN. That gets a little more complicated. The average user does not know how to use that, but it is possible to perhaps use a smartphone if you're nerdy enough to figure out how to do that, or you want to do enough Google searches. I suppose that's a possibility as well. Oldman55 suggests using a surge protector bar, which has the big on-off switch on it. But that's not a good way to turn electronics on and off. I wouldn't recommend that. Not unless you don't plan on keeping it a long time. Because when you spike electronics with a surge of power like that, it's a good way to burn out your power adapter, and it's a good way to burn out components on the motherboard. So Steve Miller says Wake on LAN is actually a lot easier than people think it is. Well, that depends. See, when you've done something and you're familiar with it, it's easy to you. When you've never done something before and you don't have a concept of how internet works, you don't have a concept of how data moves over wires, you don't have a concept of how the cellular network versus the Wi-Fi network and how they're connected and how they're different, then for somebody who doesn't understand those basics, then everything that's easy to you is super, super complex to them. And it's something we easily forget. For example, there are people who don't understand how to think digitally. And so trying to explain digital logic on or off to somebody who has grown up their whole life in an analog world is a whole different concept. It's like talking about physics versus metaphysics. It's a whole different concept. Computing versus quantum computing. It requires a whole different way of looking at the world around you. It's not just a simple matter of teaching math or teaching a language. We have to teach a new perspective. And for some people, this is easier than for other people. Now, that being said, maybe we'll cover a video on doing this someday so people don't have to learn all that and they can just follow click by click and not understand what any of it means. But do bear that in mind, that it's often easy to dismiss the complexity of what you're familiar with because you see it as being easy. And it's easy to forget, and it's kind of disrespectful to suggest anybody who doesn't know it or finds it difficult, there must be a problem with them because it's super easy for you. So how bad, don't do that. None of us were born with this knowledge. It all has to be taught. And there's a couple of prerequisites, which is one, you've got to be motivated to want to learn it. If somebody doesn't care, there's not a teacher in the world that can teach them. And the second thing is somebody's ability to understand the concepts. So if you don't understand the concepts of file and folder structure, then teaching people how to navigate directories is a complete waste of your time. Because until they can see it in their head, it's no different than reading a map. Until you can look at a map, there are many people in this world who cannot read a map. They don't understand. They cannot see in their head what the map is translating in reality. It doesn't make them dumb. They just see the world a different way. And it's not so easy to shift the perspective. Now, once the perspective is shifted, then teaching them becomes super easy. But as long as their perspective's over here and you need them looking over here, explaining all the ways they have to go, giving them directions when they're not even facing the right direction is pointless and a complete waste of time. And it doesn't mean they're stupid. It just means they don't understand the basic concepts. And we have to always start with the basic concepts. Or we do a click by click where we tell people, you don't need to understand the basic concepts if all you want to do is use Wake on LAN. You click this, you click that, you click here, and don't worry about why it works. Now, I'm not a big fan of that teaching method. But it's a way to get around the, you see, because I can show you what to click on. That's easy. And I can tell you, don't even think about it. Don't worry about why. But I'm not a fan of that method. And there's no easy method for me to change a person's perspective because we don't know what their perspective is. There could be a million different perspectives. It's not like it's one or the other. But we need them to be on a specific one to move that lesson forward. And some people find that an easier task than other people. Some people just, they don't get it. They've got their own mental block. And if I could reach into their head and remove it, I would. This is something people have to do on their own. And if they choose not to, or they don't believe that they can do it, well, I think Henry Ford said it best. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. All right. But I'm sure if you wanted to Google how to use Wake on LAN, I'm sure there are 1,000 articles on how to do it. There's probably a dozen or more YouTube videos that'll show you how as well. And you can just pick one that resonates with you or wait and then we'll do one eventually. So, in fact, Sarge Tech just posted a link to windowscentral.com with Wake on LAN instructions. And Windows Central is a reputable website, so the information there is going to be legit and trustworthy. George Frugius said, heads up on the Minis Forum NAD 9 that I worked on the other day. The default power plan is set for never, but under advanced settings under sleep, hibernation is set up for 180 minutes and the computer power light goes off. Oh, I appreciate the heads up on that. I'll have to look into it. I haven't powered it on. We've been very busy over here, as you can tell, one machine after the other, and I'm just trying to keep up. When things slow down, I will play around with that a bit more and familiarize myself with it, along with the UM790 Pro as well. We'll do some gaming on that and see how it performs. These are much more expensive machines than this. You could buy 4 or 5 of these for the cost of the other ones that we're talking about, and they're designed for different purposes than this is. So we'll save those discussions for those videos. We'll try and keep this discussion respectfully to the folks at GMTech. I appreciate that. Anything regarding any other brand of computer, if you want to email that to me, that's fine. I don't want to openly discuss competing brands. I just don't think it's a classy thing to do. And it's not comparing apples to apples. That's a bad example. Oranges to oranges, because their machines are built for different things. All right. It says we can restart now, but we're in the middle of downloading a big cumulative update and installing the Intel display. You know what? Let's go ahead and restart it now and let these updates install, since there's so many of them. Then we'll pick back up that download when we come back. Long Doug mentions a lot of computers do not have the Wake Online capability. It's not something automatically all computers can do. This is true. However, most modern machines today do have that functionality. If it's an older machine, it's less likely, but it depends on what level of older machine it is. If it was like a budget older machine, it would be more likely not to have that feature. Again, if you're interested in this topic, which the chat room keeps bringing up, and I don't know why, we're not here to talk about that today. I'm not going to discuss any more about it. You have Google. If you are one of the few viewers, of which there's 3 or 4 in the chat who keep insisting on talking about this, you have Google, you have YouTube search, and you can learn all to your heart's content. And if you want to join me on a video in the future where we discuss this in detail as the subject of the video, I would welcome you to come in and we can talk about that for the whole show. But this is not what today's show is about, and I'm not going to have the viewers manipulate my show content. So please be respectful. We are here to talk about GMKtec. That's what our tone and our purpose is today. And I want to give them the full time and attention. They've waited patiently for their turn. And we will save other topics with regards to other brands and other machines or other videos. We've been doing videos every single day. We don't have to talk about this right now today. And I'm concerned that it's putting off other viewers who have no interest in that subject and did not click on this video to learn about that. All right. So I've had an earful from viewers who get really ticked off that they clicked on a video about something and we end up talking about something else. And they let me know that, they consider that to be clickbait. So it's not done on purpose, but I'm trying to be more self-aware of it, and you can help me with that. Keep me on track. That's all I'm saying. Help me stay on track. All right. Hello to Luke Greenia, Andy Kane. Hello to Greg M. and George Frugia, Peter VZ. Hello to David Graham and Bobby Warren and Doman 2000. Steve Miller says, we just love talking tech. I apologize. It's fine. I'm just going to have to start ignoring it. All right. That's partly on me because I do want to address it, right, for viewers to be aware of it. But I also know most viewers don't care. But for the few who do, I want to encourage them that they don't need to get that in this video. They can use Google search and YouTube search to pull that information up if they are so interested in doing so. But I know the vast majority of users have no interest on Wake Online. Okay, check my email, I'm told. Don't have any email. All right, maybe a false alert. Let me go back over to Windows Update and we'll continue our updates and we can continue our discussion. Richard Palmentier said, I just checked the weather in Phoenix. It's 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, it's getting warmer. Check the weather for Monday. What's it say the weather on Monday is supposed to be in Phoenix this coming Monday? Graphics is already doing that. Very good. Yeah, that was from Mark Gaines, says to check my email. So if you sent an Amazon gift card, Mark, it could take a while before it arrives. Also, make sure you spell my email correctly, although you've never had a problem with that in the past. Mark joins us from Northern Ireland and has submitted a number of Amazon gift cards in the past. And certainly appreciate your support of the channel, Mark. And for some reason, sometimes Amazon can take a while. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it. Richard Palmentier said Monday it's predicted to be 111 degrees Fahrenheit in Phoenix. That is correct. Yes. Yeah. I want out. It has become an oven. Summer has officially started and it is freaking hot. Paul O'Brien said it's 19 degrees Fahrenheit in Dublin, Ireland. I'm sorry, 19 degrees Celsius, which I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Old Man 55 said you can fry an egg. Yeah, I don't think you'd want to eat an egg fried on a sidewalk. Be a little gritty. Luke Grady says 82 degrees and mild here in Vermont. Okay, rub it in, Luke. Rub it in. We are installing the Intel display adapter right now, followed by this big cumulative update. This is a big update. And then that last one, that Intel software component, that should be small and light. And then we'll go ahead and run some tests on this. We'll see what we have for an NVMe drive. We'll run Crystal Disk Mark. A lot of times, it seems that these mini PC manufacturers, and I'm just generalizing, I don't know about the GMKtec, but it seems like they cripple themselves, they handicap themselves by putting in slow NVMe drives and slow RAM. And so their computers can't be all they can be because they've cut the corner on the price. So my personal preference is I would much prefer to order a bare bones unit where you have to put in your own operating system, your own drive, and your own RAM. Because ultimately, I'm probably going to end up pulling the RAM and the drive out that came with the unit because it's usually holding the unit back from what it's capable of doing. And in some cases, it can make a world of difference. So I don't know in this case, but it's so common, I fully expect that we're being held back by the RAM and the storage. But with 8 gigs of RAM, I can guarantee we really want a minimum of 16. And ideally, if you just pop 32 in there, it's not expensive. RAM and storage prices right now are plummeting. Every day, it seems like they're getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And since they don't offer a bare bones version of this G1 NucBox, just get the cheapest one and then just get a 32 gig RAM module and pop it in there and grab a 1 terabyte Gen 3, like a Samsung 970 Evo. They're like $50. And so the whole thing is going to cost you $100, which is half the price of the system, but you'll get like another 50% of performance boost. I think it's totally worth it. Les Stevenson said it's 81 degrees Fahrenheit in Toronto, Canada. Captain Belinsky says 65 degrees just east of the Berg. David Graham says DDR4 RAM will soon be old school. Well, DDR5 RAM will soon be old school, and then DDR6 will soon be old school. And yeah, welcome to the world of tech. Around the wheel goes. Andy Windridge says, good evening from the Netherlands. First day with the new lips. Got to break them in. Andy Windridge. Bull Terrier Max says 64 here in Amsterdam. And Richard Goicher says 19 degrees Celsius in Brentwood, Essex in the UK. Ron Barnish, 80 degrees in New Philadelphia, Ohio. Dennis Paulson said, ooh, 90 degrees in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's a little warm. Still cooler than here. Steve Miller says it's 101 in Texas. In 22 Celsius in the Netherlands, says Peter. 67 in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, says Kevin. 16 degrees Celsius in New Zealand, says Paul. And 82 in Ettering, Ohio, says Patrick. 65 in Oakland, California. Yeah, but I don't want to be in California. You can stay there. If I'm not there, stay without me. It's expensive and crowded. John English said sometimes RAM speeds can only go so far in these mini PCs. I wasn't talking about RAM speed. John, I was talking about RAM capacity. I said 8 gigs of RAM is slowing us down. So I appreciate if you pick up what I'm putting down. Okay, we're going to do better with 16 gigs of RAM. And since 32 isn't that much more, you know what? Just slap 32 in there. The RAM speed in these doesn't matter. And then the NVMe speed, that is going to matter, especially if we're running, at Gen 3, those drives are so inexpensive right now. Why not get a high-end Gen 3 drive like a Samsung 970? Why not? They're cheap, and it can make a significant improvement in the performance of the machine. Patrick meant to say Kettering, Ohio. That probably makes more sense than Ettering. I should know that. 71 degrees Fahrenheit north of Boston, says Bob R. I guess we're getting a weather report today as we wait for these downloads. And the cumulative update still seems to be a little stuck here. So we're going to go ahead and restart again and let this Intel display driver update. Some updates may not occur until other updates have finished, and they can't finish in some cases until you restart. So while I personally prefer to wait until all the updates have downloaded and installed, sometimes they just won't until the restart has allowed the previous updates to complete before the next update starts. That does happen sometimes in Windows. Craig Gaming says the Samsung 980s are a bargain right now in the UK on Amazon. Agreed, they're a bargain here as well. I don't think they're quite as fast as the Samsung 970 Evo Pluses, but they're pretty good. Pretty good. Dustin Fuller says 83 degrees Fahrenheit in Algonac, Michigan. Richard Palmentier says it breaks up the wait time. Yeah, talking about the weather just as we're sitting here waiting on these updates. So the debate that I have is, look, does it make more sense for me to get these unboxed, get all these updates out of the way, and then do the review? Or does it make more sense to show how it comes out of the box, what updates you're going to have to do if you decide to buy one of these? This is something you should be doing as soon as you get it out of the box. You should not be using this computer or any new computer until you have updated it first. The internet is an extremely dangerous place. And in the time since this video started, hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of new viruses have been released. Well, I've been talking since the beginning of this video, and it just accumulates. Viruses never go away. The viruses released in 1996 on the internet are still out on the internet roaming around. They're just botted. They just go do their own thing. So the antivirus has to get bigger and bigger and more intensive and look for more threats, the types of threats and the way that they attack. There's 1,000 different exploit methods used, from taking advantage of any installed software, such as Microsoft Word, Adobe products, even the antivirus products themselves, remote access products, Windows itself. Oh, it goes on and on. There's exploits to your router and exploits to any of your internet connected devices, from your cameras and your Nest to your routers. You always want to keep everything updated at all times. This is no joke. Once it happens, it's like a car accident. It can be severe, and you're going to wish you could have done things differently to avoid it, because it's going to be a nightmare, and it's going to take a long time to try and put things right. Once the cat is out of the bag, once your identity is stolen, you'll never get a new identity. That is forever out of the bag. You can never put it back in. I take this very, very seriously. You want to lock everything down, make sure everything's updated at all times if you want to be safe on the internet. It's not just a question of what you're clicking on. You've got to do that too. Got an old version of Microsoft Office because you're too cheap to buy a new one. There's nothing wrong with the old one. That is the entry point for a hacker to get in. Hackers love when people have that mentality, because you make their job so easy to steal from you. So if you don't like it, find an alternative to Windows, or find an alternative to Microsoft Office. Use Google Write or use LibreOffice, OpenOffice, and keep those updated. I love when things are on the web, such as Google's applications, because Google updates them. They take that responsibility away from the user. The user's making terrible decisions all the time. They justify not putting updates on because they think the updates are bad. And they endanger all of us, because when they get infected, they become a zombie and start infecting others around them. They'll infect everybody on the network. It takes one bad employee to bring a whole company down and to expose potentially all their customers' private data because one employee did one stupid thing, one thoughtless, mindless, inconsiderate, and disrespectful thing. Don't be that one employee. The updates are free. Don't deny the updates. Put the updates on. Or when your identity gets stolen, and it's a question of when and not if you have that mentality, great. It hasn't happened yet. It's getting more and more likely every day, more and more dangerous. I'm not here to fearmonger. I'm here to tell you the way it is. It's not a joke. It's not fun. The updates are free for a reason. They're paying developers big, big money to create these updates, researchers and testers to make sure that they pass all of the tests. They put it on a server and they update the website and they pay for all the bandwidth so you can have this update for free. And some people are like, I don't want that update. You're out of your mind. So please don't be that person. Keep yourself protected. Keep everybody in your house protected. Keep everybody in your business protected. Keep those updates. If there's an update for Adobe, you grab it. If there's an update for Windows, you grab it. If there's an update for your router, you grab it. If there's an update for anything in your house that's connected to the internet, your Google Nest, your Alexa, your Fire Stick, you grab those updates because you don't want to know firsthand what happens if you ignore those updates. Then you're going to understand the hard way why the update came out, and you're going to wish you would have grabbed it before that bad thing happened. And I don't want you going down that path, but I can't stop you if you insist. Old Man 55 says, I'm really enjoying the new intros. Tell your sister she has great talent. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm trying to get her to make me some more. I grow bored easily. I need some new intros and outros. Captain Blinsky says he fired up his new UC build today with the, what's a UC build? An Uncle Carey build? And he put a newish Evo 970 Samsung drive and he was shocked at how fast it booted. Yeah. Bob R says he prefers the updates off camera. Luke Greenia said he wanted to upgrade his wife's RAM in her HP laptop, but apparently it has a RAM limit even after the BIOS update. Hard to believe it would be limited to just 8 gigs. The RAM limit may be by the processor. If you Google which CPU she has and look at the specifications, it may be the CPU itself has the RAM limit and it's not an HP thing. It's possible. You might want to just check that out. It's just, if you're going to point the blame, I want to make sure you're pointing it at the right source. You are likely going to have an issue with cheaper machines. So my guess is whatever laptop your wife was using was one of the cheapest you could buy at the time. If you want something you can upgrade, don't buy the cheapest thing on the market. There's a reason why things are priced the way they're priced. And I warn people of this all the time. You, my friend, have unrealistic expectations. If you bought the laptop that was as cheap as that laptop was, and then you honestly thought you were going to be able to upgrade it, you need to spend more money if that's the kind of person you are, so that you don't end up getting upset, shocked, or disappointed when you find out the reason why that machine was so cheap. I'm actually quite impressed that this GMKtec allows us to upgrade to 32 gigs, because I thought 16 gigs was a limit on these. And I'm also impressed that the RAM is socketed and not soldered in. There are benefits to soldered on RAM, meaning the RAM can be faster in performance and it's less likely to fail. But it also means you can't upgrade it. But if it's already 32 gigs of RAM that's soldered in, that's good for the usable life of that machine. Within about 6 to 10 years, I would imagine 32 gigs of RAM may be normal, but that machine will still be considered normal, even if people at that point are putting in 64. I don't think even in 10 years we'll be doing 128 gigs of RAM, but don't quote me on it. It could be wrong. Technology moves faster than we think, but software just isn't keeping up with hardware. So people that have 64 gigs of RAM today, likely aren't using any more than 32 of it anyway. In fact, many people who have 32 may not be using more than 24 of it. And unused RAM it's just like buying food you're not eating and letting it sit in the refrigerator. It's just sitting there unused. In the case of food, it's perishable and it rots and you throw it away. In the case of technology, it just sits there and depreciates in value until eventually you replace the computer. And things like RAM, a lot of people have no idea how much RAM they're using, but you can easily check your resources at any point to determine if how much RAM you're utilizing based on how you use your machine. And that's going to be unique to you. And it applies to nobody else on the planet except you. So how much RAM you benefit from is no different from the kind of haircut you want. It's just unique to you, whatever suits you. There's not one size fits all. Here's what you need. I can't tell you what item on the menu at a restaurant you're going to enjoy. I don't know you at all. You might find the favorite thing on the menu to be the thing that I think is the worst thing on the menu. Nothing wrong with that. But I would never say, this item on the menu, everybody's going to love that. That's a preposterous thing to say. Nick Caffrey says, hello, Carey, Marlene, and chat. Late to the show. Carey talks fast. 70 degrees Fahrenheit here in West Cork, Ireland. Welcome in, Nick. Gerhard Huff said he's got 32 gigs of RAM, but he only uses 12. Prime example. How you use your machine determines how much RAM you're required to have in order to make that machine as quick as possible. Since you don't use your machine the same as everybody else, it's impossible for someone to say, here's the amount of RAM that everybody should have. That's just a preposterous thought. So we can kind of get what's usable, right? We know with the GMKtec with 8 gigs of RAM and 512 gig of storage, it's fine as an entry-level machine. But we know we can make it better. We know we can put 4 times more RAM. We could probably put 4 times, maybe even 10 times more storage into it, right? I guess it'd be 8 times. But they do, a lot of times they say they have that 2 terabyte limit on storage. And that used to be true. But I think they're just carrying over old information. So we need to test that out when these updates are done. We can try a 4 terabyte drive and see if it'll recognize it. I'm pretty confident it's going to work fine. David Graham says RAM doesn't spoil. Well, it kind of does, though. Technology is perishable in a way that it becomes unusable, such as Rambus RAM. You got any Rambus RAM laying around? How about that DDR3, DDR2, DDR? What good is it? Doman says you really need to find a solution for quicker updates, but it gives nice time to talk. So the reason why I do this is I want you to know, if you're going to buy a new computer, any pre-built computer, whether it's a mini PC or a desktop or a laptop, you need to do this. This is critical. Before you do anything else, you get this thing turned on, you get it through the setup screen, and you immediately go to Windows Updates. And I want you to be prepared to set enough time aside in your day to know exactly what to expect. And if I edit this and I cut through it, I am lying to you. If that's what I'm doing, if I'm saying, oh, we grab our updates and then we cut, and now a certain amount of time has passed and you have no idea. Or if I pre-record this and I hit fast forward through this so you see the update happen much faster, that's a lie. That is not the real world. It'd be like we get in the car and we're going to drive together to Michigan, and that's a 3-day drive. And I'm going to film the whole way because I want you to see the scenery, the traffic, the crazy drivers, the objects in the road. I want you to see the gas stations and the prices of gas. And I want you to fully understand what is involved in a 2,000-mile trip across the country. So that if you want to do that, you know exactly how to be prepared. Anything else that's edited, I don't know. I feel like it's lying to me. That's just what it feels like to me. They're making things out where they've taken all of the unpleasantness out of it. And by removing the unpleasantness, it implies there wasn't any. And I feel like that's a lie. So anyway, that's why I'll do it one way and then I'll do it another way. And I kind of experiment. I'm having a hard time kind of debating because I don't think every video has to show the unpleasantness. After a while, enough viewers that are regular viewers say, okay, we got this. We've seen it enough times. But you got to remember, I get new viewers all the time. So it's important to go back and revisit this stuff because it can take a while and you should expect that. The good news is you shouldn't have to do this again, not to this depth. If you keep up with your updates monthly, it should only be a few minutes every month. But when it's new and out of the box, this is not a toaster. This is not an appliance. We don't just take this out of the box and plug it in and use it. And I see a lot of people do that. And this could be to the demise of those people's identities, or worse, it could infect an entire building. An entire company can go down. All their customers lack service because they treated it like it was an appliance instead of like an evolving, it's kind of a living thing, the internet. It's evolving and changing, and it gets sick, and it gets viruses, and it gets contaminants and contagions. And it's always evolving and changing. It's not like a toaster. So we have to keep up in our inoculations and our vaccines to keep ourselves protected from those threats. And the scale of it is beyond human imagination. To try and describe to you, I'm not even sure I can scale it in my head, the number of threats that are out there. So many people don't like your country. They don't like your people. They don't like your government. They live in opposing countries that are not allies, and they want to steal from you. And they celebrate when they do it. Your government can't do anything about it. So you have to protect yourself. Your government will not protect you from that. They can't. David Graham contributes $5. Says, I've changed my mind. We need you to update on camera just because we need your input. Well, again, this is a good time to talk about this. Security is inconvenient. Do I like having to lock my windows and my doors when I leave the house? Or heck, if I'm going to bed, should I have to worry that some stranger's going to come in my house and do a home invasion? Should I have to roll up my windows and lock the doors in my car and need a key to start it because somebody's going to steal it if I don't? And these are my fellow countrymen. These are my brothers and my sisters. These are my fellow countrymen that are doing that to each other. So what do you think somebody in another country who doesn't like your country and therefore doesn't like you is going to do to you? With no legal enforcement, there's no legal ramifications. There's no way for them to be punished for what they're doing because their government doesn't have a problem with it if it's against one of their political enemies. So there's no downside for them. So you have to protect yourself because the internet is connected to the world. The world is connected, the entire world. Good guys and bad guys. You've got your own fellow countrymen trying to attack you, but at least there is legal enforcement if they're caught. And then you've got other opposing countries trying to attack you where they celebrate when they steal. And the more they steal, the bigger the celebration is. Everybody's happy. The parents are proud of their kids. Yes, go get them. And when you plug that little cable on, you are connecting to every other computer in the world. Think about that. It's deep. It is the biggest network ever devised. It is massive. In theory, any computer that plugs into the internet can connect to any other computer that plugs into the internet. Doesn't matter if it's Apple or Linux or Windows, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's a phone, if it's Android, if it's iOS, doesn't matter. If it's connected to the internet, it can gain access to anything else connected to the internet unless proper security protocols are in place and are updated constantly to patch backdoors. And we're finding new backdoors all the time. Richard Palmentier says, maybe that's why it's called a worldwide network. Yes, the World Wide Web, WWW, that's right. David Dix at Rock City PC says, I had a customer walk in last week to ask if I had any EDO RAM in stock. I said, EDO? That's from 1994, 1995. I don't even think I stocked DDR3. That's pretty bizarre, but I'm not surprised. And I'll tell you why. Somebody who's living 30 years in the past is likely accustomed to walking into a store and asking for something. Anybody who's up with modern times would have simply looked online, especially a place like eBay, to find vintage parts like that, instead of going to a specific store in your region, which likely isn't going to have that old stuff. But that's how we used to find stuff. We used to have to get in the car and drive to the store, and if the store didn't have it, the store didn't have it. And then what? Well, maybe you get a paper catalog and you could shuffle through it and find the vacuum tube you needed or the record player needle that you needed. You'd go to Radio Shack, they'd have catalogs, and a Radio Shack store could special order it for you. They didn't even stock that stuff. So I'm not surprised somebody that wants an old part would do it an old way. Typical. David Graham says, do you remember the RAM that had pins? So when I first built computers, we were building 486s and 386s. And back then, the RAM, I'm trying to remember which model of motherboard we were using, but we were using the individual RAM modules. They come in a clear tube, really long, skinny clear tube. And you'd put 8 RAM modules in with the option of adding a 9th one for parity. And they had about, I want to say, 8 legs on each side. And you'd have to push it down with sheer force. The CPUs went in the same way. You'd sit your Intel CPU down on the socket, and you'd have to push down on it to get it to sink in. And it's nerve-wracking because if a pin bends up underneath, you can't tell, because from the edges, it looks like the pins are all seated. And the Intel socket had like 3 or 4 rows of pins. And then we had a special rake we would use. It's a metal rake that would get between the CPU and the socket and bend up so you could pry that CPU out of its socket. That was before the ZIF or zero insertion force socket with the lever. That made life a lot easier. But yeah, so we'd have these machines, and so each row of RAM you'd put in was like, I don't know, a meg, something like that. And the motherboards would need to have a bunch of sockets. This cost a lot of money, by the way. So you'd need a socket for each module. And if you were going to have 4 megs of RAM, you needed 8, 16, 24, 32 chips. And if those chips had parity, you needed 4 more for a total of 36. And each one, you had to orient it in the right direction and push it down, because you could install it backwards. You had to look for the little white dot, figure out where pin 1 was, push it down, make sure none of the legs got bent up underneath, and go to the next one. Very repetitive, time-consuming process. That's how we did it. Yeah, I'd go to the parts cage, get my tube of RAM, and if it didn't work or some of the RAM didn't appear, you had to pry up each one. I had a little tiny screwdriver, a flat blade screwdriver, get up under the edge, lift it, check to see if any of the legs were bent. If not, push it back down and hope when I pushed it back down, I didn't just bend the leg again. Just creating another problem. It was a skill. Yeah. So the single inline memory module, the SIMM, which later led to the dual inline memory module, the DIMM, which we now refer to as double data rate DDR 2, 3, 4, 5, all starts with the humble beginnings of that individual RAM chip. Use my thumb, push them down. Brendan says, I am in IT security, and I will tell you we are losing bad. Yeah, but we don't have to be. If people would stop trying to be like, they're trying to be conspiracy theorists, they're trying to be more clever, and it's making them more vulnerable, and it's making the rest of us more vulnerable. What are you going to do? We need to take the updates away from the end user. We need users to be on smart terminals and let them connect to the web, and let the owners of the web keep those updates. And when they fail to do them, there's accountability, right? We can point the finger at a company that tried to save money and, didn't put security in the way they were supposed to, which we still deal with today. But a lot of times, companies that do that don't survive that mistake. They go out of business. So that's a problem that can solve itself in time. Dwayne Blackwelder said you could use a chip puller and insertion tool. I never had an insertion tool, and the chip pullers, they're like tweezers that have a little bent in, and I would just break those. They just bend. I found using a straight edge screwdriver much easier. And before we got the rakes for the pulling the chips up on the Intel 486s, we would grab a small straight edge screwdriver, and we had a high temperature flame, and we would bend it. So the end of the screwdriver was bent into like the shape of an L. And then once that cooled off, that would be our chip puller, where we would take the CPU, take this flat blade screwdriver, which was a really small screwdriver, put it under the edge of the CPU, and then push it down and use it as a lever, bring up one edge. But you had to be careful, because if you brought it up too high, you'll bend all the pins on the other side. So you'd go around each side a little at a time. Luckily, the pins were very short and it wasn't that big of a deal. So when we got the rakes from Intel, so much easier, because it would bring the whole chip up instead of just one edge. But if you weren't careful with the screwdriver, you could crack ceramic material that the chip was made out of. And that was an expensive mistake. Those chips, even though they're only like 25 megahertz, very expensive, several $100s. No, we didn't use jeweler screwdrivers. Those were too fragile. We used, I still have one in my toolkit. I still have all those old tools over at Studio A. But we would use something like, it'd be a little longer than this one, but this is a screwdriver that's used for releasing the electrical wires in an outlet. And so we would use something like that, but it'd be about that long, and we just curve the end on it. But it's about the same size flat blade there. Yeah, it's about that long, but about almost nearly identical to that, except for the length. And then we passed those out to the techs at the company, so that all the people that did that kind of work had one of these tools made for them. And these updates are going to take a while. By only having 8 gigs of RAM and by having an N95 CPU, we don't have the power and resourcefulness that a more expensive machine is going to have. As a result, things are going to take a little longer. As I mentioned, it's worth it, because no matter how long this takes, it's a fraction of the time of what it's going to take to get your identity back or to get your money back from the bank when it gets stolen. This is an investment, and it's really not that big of a deal. Because this can take a while, I recommend that you plan for it accordingly. You don't have to sit here and watch it. If you buy one of these, any computer that's pre-built, plan for this. It's going to take a while. You don't have to sit here and watch it. You can go to the store, go grocery shopping, you can go watch TV for a little while. It will wait for you indefinitely when it's done. It's very patient. You don't have to sit there and stare at it. We're doing that now because it's a live video, and I want to see, how long is this going to take? This is reality. Reality isn't just an Instagram photo of a moment frozen in time. There's a lot more to it that gets to that moment, that photographic moment. And it's an investment. And if you refuse to make the investment, I don't expect you're going to have a similar experience overall. You may not be a happy camper. So this is the responsible thing to do. And yes, it's inconvenient. So is locking my doors. It's inconvenient. Having to have keys to get into everything is inconvenient. Having to have alarm codes is inconvenient. The world is filled with people who would love it if you didn't do that, because you would make stealing from you so much easier. Arto says we're at 25 minutes on this update. That is a lot longer than I expected, but it's important. think I need a colder Gatorade. My Gatorade's gotten warm. We're about an hour and 15 into today's video. And we'll likely go another hour on this, I think. Not on this update, I mean on the entire video. We should be long past the update and on to other things. In the business world, as you can imagine, if you're working with a client who has a lot of computers and those computers are slow, or if they're older, it takes more labor for you as an IT person. So if you're self-employed and you've got a customer who's got older equipment, the older equipment, generally speaking, needs more maintenance, and said maintenance takes longer because the equipment is older. That means your labor is going to be far greater requirements of your time for a customer that's going to need it more often, and it's going to take longer to do the same things. And it often makes the most sense to convince those customers to get higher end machines, especially if they've got a lot of them. Imagine an office that had 10 of these. The only reasonable way to maintain them would be to log in remotely, hit the updates, log out, go to the next one, do the updates, log out, and then check it in the morning. They'll be done. So you're not going to get everything done that one night if you've got more than updates to do. So when I'm maintaining my clients' computers, it's in my best interest to make sure that those clients have fast machines. So I'm not sitting there all day waiting for backups or waiting for updates. And if something is going to take a long time, like I had a client the other day, their network switch went a little hinky. And so everything across the network was moving at a snail's pace. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to drive 30 miles to unplug the switch and plug it back in again. I don't care if this takes all night. I'll just let it run and go to bed. Because even as slow as it was going, I'm sure it would be done within 8 hours. And that's what I did. And the client came in the morning, the backup, normally when the backup completes, I close the window out that says, you know, successful, and I close the software. But that would be left on their desktop. But at least it's done, and the client can close the window, who cares? And then the client can then unplug their switch and plug it back in when they realize how slow everything is. Or they'll call me and I'll guide them to do that. But that didn't stop the backup from getting made, is what I'm trying to tell you. Still happened. It just meant instead of me waiting for it to finish, I just went to bed. To heck with it. It was running. It was just running at a snail's pace because the equipment needed to be restarted. Now, I always make sure that my clients have the best equipment necessary. I have gone to the extent of selling the equipment at less than my cost because I couldn't convince the client to spend the extra couple $100. I just did it anyway and charged them the cheaper price because I knew I was going to make it back in the maintenance agreement that we do monthly. So it was doing myself a favor by giving the client more than they wanted and selling it to them at the price that they wanted to pay. And then I'm earning it back every month as I do the maintenance. It's happening lickety split, and further, because it's high-end equipment, it's going to be that lickety split speed for many, many years. So the only way that doesn't pay off is if the client were to go out of business or decide they don't want to work with me anymore. But I only need it for a couple of months to break even. And then after that, it's icing on the cake. So I become more profitable when the clients don't require as much labor or time to do their updates and maintenance. Even virus scans can take a long time. On a high-end machine with fast NVMe and a lot of RAM and a fast processor, those things happen lickety-split. And that makes me more profitable. If you buy a machine like this, you are buying a sub $200 computer. You're not getting a rocket ship. Windows 11 is Windows 11. It doesn't load any differently on an N95 than it does on a 13900KS. It's the same operating system. All the same millions of lines of code, all the same exploits, and all the same updates apply. The only difference is how long it's going to take you to get them. If this matters to you, you'll need to open your wallet and spend more. Otherwise, it's not a big deal. Like I said, you can set it, walk away, Go do something else. Go to bed. It'll be waiting for you in the morning. It's not a big deal. And save your money. But you got to pick one or the other. You can't be reasonable and think you're going to buy a $200 computer and you're going to get updates that happen like that. It doesn't work like that. You will need to pay for that. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just about keeping people real. It's about being realistic. We're not trying to paint this out to be something it isn't. And you can kid yourself all day long and convince yourself how much money you saved. But I guarantee you got less than somebody who spent more. And I don't care who the brand is, and I don't care if it's Intel or AMD. If you spend less, you get less. And maybe all you need is less. You don't always need more. It may be it's a little inconvenient from time to time, but that's the price you're going to pay. If you're not going to pay in cash, you're going to pay in time. One or the other is how this works. So I just want you to not be upset. I don't want you to have buyer's remorse. I want you to understand what it is you're getting so that you'll be happy with whatever decision you make. That's my only goal here. So many people have unrealistic expectations and they're always upset and they're always disappointed and they always feel victimized. And I'm trying to avoid that. We have a very good product here. Despite how long this is taking, this is a one-time thing. It's not a big deal. It really is. And for the amount of money you're saving, worth it. If you're in that budget category where this is the best you can afford, this is going to keep you safe and secure online for the next 8 to 10 years. It's not going to be the fastest box in the world, but the same can be said for a car. You go buy yourself a $12,000 used car while your neighbor's got a shiny new Dodge Hellcat Challenger Charger. You might look at it and go, gee, I wish I could have that loud, obnoxious, super fast machine. But they're paying in gas, they're paying in insurance, they're paying in ongoing maintenance. You're not. So is that really something to envy? I mean, it's really just an attitude issue, right? Old Man 55 says, I now have all the time in the world, but at my age, I have a lot less patience. Well, that's why it's good to multitask. That's why it's good to set up something like this. It's just your first updates that are going to take a while. And even then, it's unusual for them to take this long, but nonetheless, if you've set it, let it update, you can turn the monitor off, leave the house, cook dinner, watch television, do the laundry, mow the yard, mop the floor, do the dishes, clean the pool, if you've got a pool, go swimming, go shopping, come back, it'll be waiting for you. It's the most patient thing in the world. It'll wait months for you to come back. It doesn't mind. You don't have to sit here and watch it. If that's the kind of thing that drives you crazy, don't do that to yourself. Chris wants to know if installing a current version of Windows would be faster. The current version of Windows will still need updates. This has the current version of Windows. So unless you've slipstreamed a version of Windows with all the latest updates in it, that'll take you a good 6 to 10 hours to make that slipstream. And that's assuming you've tested it, that it works. All because you didn't want to spend 45 minutes or an hour to do the updates doesn't make any sense to me. This is a fully updated version of Windows. It was Windows 11 22H2. That's why I checked it. So a brand new installation of Windows requires updates. Don't kid yourself. You'd just be making it take longer. Now, if this was version 21H2, then yes, doing a clean install of 22H2. Or if, let's say, October comes around and 23H2 comes out, we just want to put 23H2 on it if it wasn't already on there. But every month there's new updates. So since 22H2 was released, every month new updates have come out, every single month. And so if this is 22H2, then we're missing all the updates for every month since then that 22H2 came out. 22H3 comes out. 22H3? Let's try that again. When 23H2 comes out, we're going to repeat the same thing. So on the month that it comes out, you're all good to go. But the next month there'll be updates, and the next month there'll be updates. And that'll go on for 11 months until 24H2 comes out. And around the wheel goes. And the longer it is since the update comes out, the more months have passed, the more updates you've missed. So when you get a brand new machine, fresh from the factory with a nice clean install of the latest version of Windows, you only need to get the updates that have come out since the version of Windows that was put on there. Doman 2000 says there is a revised version of Windows 11, 22H2 version 2. This is true. Sometimes Microsoft updates the ISOs. However, there was a very large update released just this last Tuesday, and that one update alone can take 20 to 30 minutes on some computers. And I don't think that's included on that ISO. So depending on how old your installation media is, like if you go and you make it, Microsoft, if you go and make it today, Microsoft usually doesn't upgrade those ISOs very often. Typically, they get upgraded when the next big version, 23H2 comes out, there'll be new ISOs released. This is unusual that Microsoft has done this, and you can grab an updated ISO image. But again, the amount of time it takes you to download and create that image, and then plug it in and go through the whole installation process. Then you're going to have to find all the drivers and put all the drivers back in, which is going to be very difficult when your network doesn't work. You're going to have to figure out a way to get online using another computer, download at least the network drivers so that you can get online and download the main drivers. I think you would be making your life much more difficult. That would be like saying, would it be faster for this wound to heal if I peel the scab? Rarely. If anything, you're making it take longer. It's like you're a masochist, and it's like, this isn't bad enough. How can I make it worse? But to each their own. I'm not going to stop you if that's what you want to do. At least it gives you something to do other than stare at the screen for a little while. Although you'll still be staring at the screen, waiting for the ISO to download, waiting for it to burn to a flash drive, figuring out how to get that flash drive to boot, deleting all the partitions on the drive, waiting for the install to complete, and then when the install is complete, figuring out how to get it online so you can get the drivers so that you can then go to Windows Update and grab your Windows updates, which is what we're already doing. But yeah, if you think that's faster, go right ahead. Richard Palmentier says, Carey, I'm selling my old laptop. It's been months since it's been updated. Should I update it now or leave it? Well, it's not your concern, Richard. It's not your laptop. If you're selling it to somebody else, that's their problem. I wouldn't update it. Let me rephrase. As a business person selling a computer to a customer, I make sure it's updated so that anything that happens, I'm reducing the odds of anything bad happening right away. Right? So if the customer fails to update it over time and they get infected, they get their identity stolen, that's not on me. But if I sell them a brand new machine, I don't trust them to get the updates. People are too impatient, they're too fickle, they're too ADHD, they got 15 seconds of their attention, and they're going to plug it in and start using it and totally forget everything I told them. So I do it for them, protect my company. As an individual selling a computer to another random individual online, who cares? They're a complete stranger. They're going to kick the tires. They're probably going to try and knock you down on price. You're going to get a lot of people wasting your time. I tell you right now, if you're putting an ad on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, you're going to get 20 emails, and 15 of them are going to be people trying to scam you. 4 of them will be people trying to lowball you. And one of them will be the sincere buyer. It's a hassle. So for me, it is what it is. That's what you get. Buy. Just like a garage sale. If it's somebody you care about, you might want to update it for them. Manufacturers don't update their PCs, so why should you? In other words, if that same person buying the machine from you went to Best Buy and bought a machine off the shelf, those machines could be sitting on the shelf for months without updates. Manufacturers don't care. So what? If it's just a random customer, and it's not even a customer, you're selling from one individual to another individual, there's nothing guaranteed or implied. They're obviously looking for a good price. You know, if you want to go above and beyond and do that, that's your choice. I wouldn't. But have fun if you know, either way. It's not like they're going to return it one way or the other. Steve Miller says, I had a scammer from Craigslist actually send me a legitimate check in the mail. I didn't cash it. That's how far the scams go, though. That's scary. Yeah. He said, I just wanted to see how far they would go with it. Sometimes those checks don't clear. Like you go to deposit them in the bank will accept it. And if you've got a good relationship with your bank, they'll go ahead and release the funds in anticipation that the check is good. And it takes 3 to 4 business days before the bank figures out, oh, that check is fraudulent. It looked real. It fooled everybody, but there's actually no money in that account, or that account doesn't exist. Happens all the time. It's always about greed. It's greed coming from the person that's doing the scam, and it's greed from the person accepting the scam. So you get what you get. But if I was going to deposit that check, I would tell, well, first of all, you could get a bounce check fee from your bank. So I would take it to the bank it's drawn on and try and cash it right at the teller window. And if the bank is not a local bank where you can, you know, it's not a national bank, then you risk getting a bounce check fee. But you'd want to wait and get confirmation from the bank when the check clears before you withdraw any money. And that's what people don't do. All too often they get scammed because they're greedy. Just because the bank gave you the money, they think the check is good, and they didn't really listen to what the bank teller said. So again, it's up to you to protect yourself, because other people in general in society today are not looking out for you, quite the opposite. And that's why we lock our doors. That's why we roll up the windows in our cars. That's why we all have keys, and that's why no two keys are alike. And don't worry, it's all temporary. Whether you're good or you're bad, it all ends the same way sooner or later. There's the bright side. Let's see, we are still updating. That's crazy. I will tell you what could have made a bigger difference on how long this update takes is bumping that RAM up to 16 gigs. I think if we'd have done that, we'd probably be done with these updates by now. I'm guessing. I don't think this is limited on the CPU. I think what's happening is we're using so much of the RAM that it's having to utilize virtual memory onto the storage, and it's stretching this out in order to do what it needs to do. These are big updates. They're important. They're massive, and they're critical. And we have a machine here that it's a basic budget machine. So, you know, if I had to do it all over again, I wish I would have done this off camera. I never expected to take this long. This may be the longest we've ever waited for any computer ever to update. And that's not saying anything bad about the computer. I think any other computer with similar specifications is going to run exactly the same way. Dwayne says it's been 45 minutes on this update. That is by far the single longest amount of time I've had to wait on a new PC to update ever. So when you are deciding to buy a new computer or a used computer, I want you to understand what those numbers mean. We talk about storage. We talk about whether or not it's NVMe storage, if it's Gen 3 or Gen 4, possibly Gen 5. We talk about RAM. How much RAM? The lower that RAM number is, the slower that computer is going to feel to you. It used to be back in the day, it was all about the processor. It was all about the frequency, the 48625 versus the 48633, maybe the 48633 DX2, whether or not you had a 486SX or DX, if the math coprocessor mattered to you. That's all we looked at was frequency, speed. But today, it's almost like the processor's further back in the chain as far as determining computer speed, as RAM and storage have sort of taken over because of the way software has evolved. Now, that's not to say you don't get better performance from a higher end processor. Of course you do. But it may not be performance that benefits you, depending on how you use your machine. It's not like your Google Chrome is going to open any faster, whether you've got a Celeron or an i5 or a Ryzen 9. It's all kind of the same. But because of more channels of data that can happen simultaneously, if you're opening up multiple things, or you've got something that's very intensive on the RAM or CPU or even a GPU, that having these high-end things can process more data faster, resulting in what appears to be a more responsive computer. But if you're not doing those types of things with a machine, if that's high-end, it won't appear to be any faster than a lower-end machine. Does that make sense? Buying a fast car and never driving it fast isn't really any different than buying a slow car. Sure, maybe getting from 0 to 60, there's a few seconds of difference, but then how often are you going 0 to 60? You're pretty much, or whatever, 0 to whatever your speed is. Whatever it is till you get to your driving speed, it's not beneficial or performance oriented for you to slow down only to speed back up so you can appreciate how fast the car accelerates. You're only accelerating for a few seconds. Once you're at your speed, you're at that speed for a long time, far greater, many times over, than how often you're accelerating or how often you're braking, I hope. So the people focus on 0 to 60 times like they're saving a lot of time. Oh, this car goes 0 to 60 in 11 seconds. My car does it in 4 seconds. Oh, the new Tesla Model S Plaid will do it in 3 seconds. You saved from the worst to the best. You've saved 8 seconds. And then what? And then you're going to drive the speed limit like everybody else, regardless of how long it took them to get to the speed limit. It took the guy in the Prius a few seconds longer. And the guy in the Prius isn't stopping for gas as often as you are. So sometimes people get sort of fixated on the thing that doesn't matter and completely ignore the thing that does. So, I just find that fascinating to see people prioritize things that don't really matter. They're prioritizing seconds and ignoring minutes. It's weird to me. It's like stepping over dollars so they can pick up dimes. It's very strange. Is it really updating? It seems to be updating. I mean, we are getting mouse movement. The rotation of the circle going on the screen is occurring. We don't have any hard drive activity light. However, the machine is warm. It does not appear to be locked up. It looks like it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but this is highly unusual. And certainly I would understand somebody saying, is it really updating? Or is it just saying it is and it's locked up? The problem is if we interrupt it, you never want to shut the computer off during an update because you can damage the operating system as files are being updated. And this impatience is what has bought me a new car. Clients being impatient hire me more often than any other client to fix the damage they caused. And I've made more money from impatient people than probably from all other customers put together. So your impatience can cost you a lot of money, including buying a higher end PC. If you're somebody who's impatient and you don't want to wait for updates like this, maybe you'll spend $1,000 on a box. Well, that's 5 of these boxes. Impatient people will pay more, or they'll pay somebody like me to come fix the problem they caused. Now, at some point, it would be reasonable to say, okay, if it hasn't happened by now, it's clearly stuck. But I don't think we're at that point yet. It's very difficult to tell, but based on the heat the machine's putting out, it appears to be working. And Unfortunately, without a hard drive activity light, we can't really tell what's going on. I do see that the lights on the back of the network card are blinking, that there's traffic, but they'll do that even when the unit's off. So I don't know. I really don't know, but I'm certainly under the impression that it's working. Doesn't mean I'm right. So if we want to, just because, let's prove a point. How about that? Because I'm honestly, I'm getting a little impatient with this. This is a little ridiculous. I'm going to pull the power cable on this. You should not do this. I mean, unless you don't care about your computer or you're very technically competent and you can repair any damage you've caused. Let's see if we've caused any damage by doing that. And we'll learn firsthand what's going to happen. It's really the roll of the dice. It might be okay. It might not be okay. I don't know. Let's see what happens. We can take something boring and turn it interesting just by pulling a plug. Okay, it's starting to load. That's a good sign we didn't get a boot error. Oh, and we're right back to where we were. So that suggests to me that everything is in fact working like it should. However, it didn't stay there very long, did it? Okay, we could have damaged files. So even though we've still booted, I want you to know we could have caused some damage when we did that. I'm going to, you're going to kill me. I'm going to go back to Windows Update because I want to see what updates remain. I have to know. In theory, if we've damaged any of the updates, hopefully Windows is intelligent enough to try and update again, those same updates. And if it accepted the updates and we were actually just locked up, then there should only be a couple updates remaining. So yeah, it's still got this big update, which is the one I thought it was doing was this one. That's crazy. All right, so before we do this, let's shut it down. Let's take a look at the inside. Let's open it up, and maybe we can bump that RAM up, and we can see what a big difference upgrading the RAM can make, and why you might want to consider when ordering one of these to get yourself at least 16 gigs of RAM, minimum on any computer. We're going to pull power, pull the HDMI, and pull the internet. Pull the keyboard and mouse. Hey, camera girl. I could use some close-ups. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille. I'm going to get started because I'm impatient. This screwdriver's too big. Not going to work. Maybe this one? Oh, it's good. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right, I better get my glasses so I can see. Let's see. Let's go to close-up camera. Right. All right, come on over. There we go. We're going to go here. Well, this looks familiar, doesn't it? We were just working with a machine where the little rubber feet come off exactly the same as this. What machine was that? Do you remember?
One yesterday.
No, yesterday was the rubber feet that stuck up.
To your wrist.
Yeah, but that wasn't yesterday. Yesterday was the rubber foot.
Yesterday.
Which one did we do yesterday?
The Morphine.
We didn't do Morphine yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
We did Morphine like 3 days ago. What are you talking about? We did the UM790 yesterday.
Oh, that's right.
See, you can't even keep it straight. I got so many things going on here at the same time.
You're working me too hard.
I don't feel so bad now. So they've written on the back of it, feel how warm that is. It's toasty. There's no pull tab here, so I guess you gotta get up under there somehow, some way. All right. Hey, it's name brand solid state drive, Lexar. And RAM is, what is this? Let's get this thing out of here because I think this is creating our problem. And what is that? DDR4, right? PC, yeah, 3200. So I've got some RAM sitting over here. What do we have? DDR4. Here, I got a brand new single channel sitting right on the shelf just for this occasion. Now, 32 gigs is probably a little overkill for an N95, but they say that's the limit, and I want to see if that's true. This stuff is super cheap these days, too. DDR4 2666, and this is DDR4 3200. I think having more RAM is more important than having faster RAM, especially since I don't think the N95 CPU can utilize 3200 speed anyway. Weird decisions are being made. I think they're being made financially and not logically for regards to the best performance per dollar. So pop that in there, get down. And before I go any further, let's just see if it turns on. So I'm going to plug power back in. Let's move this stuff out of the way. And I need HDMI cable and my network cable. My network and my HDMI cable here and here. Let me have you move your foot, please. And we'll plug these in. Right, chia. And then I need to plug the keyboard and mouse back in, which I have right here. Plug that in, and we'll turn it on. And then I'm going to go over to HDMI input, which says no signal. Oh, there it goes. All right, you're free and clear for now. I'm going to use you again in a second, though.
Okay.
Don't go too far.
Okay.
So it's booting up. And this is probably the single best upgrade we could make to this machine as far as noticeable performance difference. Let me go full screen over here. And let's go right click my computer, go to properties. 32 gig, it does see 32 gigs of RAM, fantastic. So that in and of itself, things are gonna move a lot quicker on you. It won't make my internet any faster though. So as far as like how long it takes for Windows to download and update, you see how it started at 0% before we were, oh, I already jumped to 7. So it's picking up where it left off. These updates, well, it's not going to be any faster for my internet to download them. At least once they're downloaded and they start to install, they should happen a lot faster. Okay, so with that being done, let me go ahead and shut this down. Turn this off. Oh, the computer's much more responsive now. Now, I want to upgrade this M.2 storage. I want to see if it's really got a 2 terabyte limit, because I don't think it does. I need a 4 terabyte Gen 3 drive. And again, I wouldn't do this to a machine at this price point, but I want to know if it's possible. That's all. What do I have here? What can I use? You know what? I used up all my 4 terabyte drives. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab one of the 4 terabyte drives. I have 4 of them sitting here for the RAID drive video project that we're doing. But we can borrow one. We'll put it back when we're done. Close up cam girl. I require your services, please. Now, usually in these units, the Wi-Fi adapter, if it's changeable, is usually located under the M.2 drive. We have a second M.2 slot here for like a 2242 drive. Don't know if that's SATA only. I wouldn't use it, but it's there. That's what it's for. And let me grab the screwdriver again in my glasses. And are you ready?
Ready.
All right, come on over. She is. Okay. I should have performance tested this before I took it out. You know what? Let's do that real quick. Let me put it back in. Hold on. Wait. Was there an M.2 card under here? Wi-Fi card is here. So that's upgradable. That's good to see. That's your CMOS battery right there. Okay. Let me put this back in. Let's boot it back up. Yeah. And we'll run Crystal Disk Mark on it. I am curious. We're going to go back over to the HDMI input screen. There we go. All right, you are clear. Thank you again. Sorry, I was a little premature in that. It's my impatience. But at least it boots really quick now. And I'm going to grab my utilities flash drive, which I have laying around here somewhere. And we'll plug that into the front USB port here. And we're going to go over to, let's see. Explorer Drive D. Let's just grab a Crystal Disk Mark portable. Now, bear in mind, it's going to be automatically downloading more updates in the background. So we may not be getting a very accurate Crystal Disk Mark reading here, just so you know. Don't want to wait for all the updates. We've already spent way too much time on that. So let's see what it says. Crystal Disk Mark. Here we go. Yeah, it's slow. So it's at 1500, but here's the thing. Even though it's Gen 3, I can't help but wonder if it might be Gen 3 by 2. The problem with these lower end processors is they don't have the number of data channels, pathways that a higher end processor will have. It's more than just frequency these days. It's not like you can compare a 3 gigahertz processor to a 3 gigahertz processor and say, hey, they're both the same speed. It doesn't work like that anymore. It hasn't worked that way since the 90s. In fact, you can go back 15 years and get a 3 gigahertz processor. And if you think that that processor from 15 years ago runs the same 3 gigahertz speed as today's modern 3 gigahertz processors, I think you're going to find yourself in for a bit of a surprise. Now, if this is a PCIe by 2 lane, then the fastest we're going to get out of it's about 1800. So it won't do you any good to put anything any faster in there to pay the extra money for the extra performance, only to plug it into a slow socket. Because that socket may be the limiting factor. Now, I am making a guess here. I don't know. I'd have to look up the N95 processor and see what PCIe lane channels it supports at what speed. But when I see numbers under 1800 on an NVMe drive, I'm guessing it's the socket and not the drive. But it could be either one. Yeah, we're at about 1600 on the reads and the writes. So that implies to me that the drive is actually much more capable than the socket. Usually your writes are going to be slower than your reads, and when your writes and your reads are down there at those numbers under 1800, that's usually indicative of the socket itself. What can I do to test this? Let me think. Okay. I'll tell you what, I'm going to grab my Silverstone NVMe enclosure so we can clone this to the 4 terabyte drive. Because I know that 4 terabyte drive can go over 3000. And if the 4 terabyte drive is going to run at around 1800 or less, we know it's the socket. Also, I'm curious if the 4 terabyte drive will be seen, because according to GMKtec, 2 terabytes is the limit. I don't believe that's true. So in just a minute, we'll have these results. And then I'm also going to need my Acronis boot disk so we can boot to Acronis. We'll clone this drive image over to the 4 terabyte team group drive. And it should only take a couple minutes. Way faster than reinstalling, sure. You ready to go to work, camera girl?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Get ready. I'm getting ready to do this next thing. Actually, yeah. I just need you for a few minutes. Come on over. Trying to debate how I want to. Trying to be a director here. I'm trying to debate how I want to direct this. Let's go to the close-up camera. Let me know when you're ready.
Ready.
All right. So the first thing I want to do before I go to the close-up camera, take a good look at these numbers. Particularly pay attention. These two top numbers are 1680s. So just we'll say 1700. I'm going to close this and shut the computer down. Do that now while I can see the screen, because as soon as I go to the close-up camera, I won't see the screen anymore. Okay, come on over. There we go. So here's our Lexar drive that's installed. And I don't know if anybody wants to Google the specifications on this Lexar drive, but I bet you that that's capable of going much faster than 1700. So we're going to leave this in here. We're going to take the Team Group 4 terabyte drive. These are it's $169 on Amazon right now for 4 terabytes, Gen 3. That's insanity. And then we've got the Silverstone, the Raven enclosure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this bad boy right in here, like so. And we'll close that up. Slide that in there. Let's replace, we don't have any Type-Cs on here, right? So I'll have to use an adapter to go Type-C to Type-A. And I need my Acronis rescue disk. And we'll plug that in. Plug that in here. I'm not going to plug this drive in yet. Now we'll turn this on and we'll try and get it to boot to that, which I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. It's probably going to boot too quick for me. Let me see if I can get into the BIOS. I'll press delete. All right, you're clear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that did take us into the BIOS. Very good. And now I can go full screen over here so I can see the BIOS. Looks like a pretty standard BIOS here. Over to boot. Do we have a boot override? Yes, there's boot override. That's the one we want, the UEFI OS SanDisk. Push enter, and it should now boot to the Acronis rescue flash drive I've plugged in. And then when that plugs in order to avoid any confusion on bootable drives, I wait for Acronis to load before I plug in the NVMe enclosure that's also USB. Oh, I'm so glad I changed the RAM out, because this is even loading so much faster than I was expecting it to. Okay, very good. And just a minute. Linda says the Lexar is supposed to have 3,300 megabyte reads. Oh, this is David Dix at Rock City. Said the Lexar NM620 is rated at 3,300 megabytes per second on the reads and 3,000 megabytes per second on the writes. So that implies that the N95 CPU only allows for a data path of 2 lanes instead of 4. So we're only getting half the speed out of it. But that's what you get when you buy the cheaper CPU. All right, now let me plug in the enclosure, the NVMe enclosure. What type of SanDisk drive is that? That's the Extreme Pro. Those are the fastest flash drives, as far as I can tell, that are on the market. That's a 1 terabyte. Those are on Amazon for about $120. It's a bargain. 420 megabytes a second or something on the reads and writes. They're quick. Now, there are faster flash drives, yes. However, not that small. This maintains the form factor, and I love the build quality of it. All right, so these are all the images that exist on the flash drive. Because it's a 1 terabyte flash drive, I partition it and I put all my images on here because I back up to you. I'm going to hit cancel. I don't want to do this. I want to do a clone. So we go to Tools, Clone Disk, Automatic, Next. We want to clone from the 500 gig internal SSD NVMe interface. Yes, that's our source. Now it's going to look for a potential target, and hopefully it will find our NVMe USB NVMe drive. That's 4 terabytes. Does not find it. It only shows the bootable drive, the internal drive, which is not good. So what that tells me is I may not have plugged this in. Well, first of all, it could be a couple different things happening here. I might have a bad USB cable, but I'm going to try plugging in to the back USB port, the NVMe enclosure, just to see if that has any better luck. I need to give it a second to recognize the drive. And if this doesn't work, I need to try a different cable. I'm not using the original cable that came with the drive, but I'm hoping that cable will work. Clone, Automatic, this one. We shouldn't see disk 3 because it's not partitioned or formatted and therefore would never be a source drive for that reason. We still don't see a disk 3, so we're still not seeing this correctly. So I'm going to try a different cable because I think that's the problem. Let me look in the other room here. See if I've got a different cable that might work. This one might do the trick. I'm still guessing. Not all USB cables are created equal. And I suspect I'm having a cable problem. Let's try this cable. Oh, that one clicked when it went in. That's a good sign. And let's go back to the front. All these USB ports should be identical. Am I getting a light on the drive? Should get a light on the enclosure. I'm not seeing it happen. There's one other thing I can try, which is a Type C to Type A adapter. See if that might give us any better luck. I'm sure I've got one in the other room here. I've been spoiled going Type C to Type C, so it's been a while since I had to go Type C to Type A. No, I have one. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. It's right here. Because that's still, I'm not getting a light on this drive. Take a quick look. Try this one more time, but I suspect it's without the light on. I don't think it's going to show us. Next. This one. Yeah, still not seeing it. Okay, so I'm going to unplug this and we're going to go back to the original cable that I was using, the one that came with the unit, Type C to Type C. Then I will use oh, this is the wrong direction. This is Type A to Type C. I need to go Type C to Type A. Oh, come on, Carey. You got to know better than that. I thought I had one in this drawer. Wait, what's this? I have a Type C to Type A. Now, I've never used these before. I don't know if they work. I do have a Type C to Type A. Now let's plug that in. I am concerned that I am not getting a light. The enclosure should give me a light when it's connected, and I am not getting that. I don't know why. Let me switch it over to the back. Try the other USB port back here. This isn't good. The drive is seated correctly. Everything looks good. Okay, this is bizarre. I'm going to try a different enclosure just to make sure it's not a enclosure issue here. So let me unplug this enclosure. And then I guess I can go to camera one while we're sitting here. You guys can kind of see what I'm doing. And I'm going to take this Type C to Type A adapter. Set this over here. First time I've had a problem with that, so I don't know what's going on, so we're just guessing. Thankfully, as a working technician, I have a lot of different tools at my disposal. And yeah, see if I can get lucky. Plug that in. Okay, now I'm getting a light on this unit. I'll turn that on. This is promising. Light is blinking, so it tells me it's initializing. The light should go steady. Let me go back to my input over here. Screen. I don't like that that light is blinking. Do not be blinking. Tools. Low. Automatic. Disk one. Nope, still does not see it. That's weird. All right, I'm going to try one more thing. Let me turn this back off. It still could be a cable related issue. I'm going to switch the cable to this one. See if it's any happier. The light just blinks. Huh. Okay. Well, the best I can make out of this is either there truly is a 4 terabyte limit, or we're having some kind of a weird compatibility problem in the hardware. So here's how I fix this. I'm going to pull the power on this. It shuts it off because we're booted to Acronis. It doesn't matter. We don't have to shut down properly. And yes, with Acronis, you can clone anything to anything. Size doesn't matter. As long as the amount of data you've got will fit onto the thing you're cloning to, it automatically resizes everything. It's an awesome tool. I use it all the time. And I got about half a dozen videos or more about Acronis and demonstrating different ways to use it. If you're interested, please watch those videos. So I'm done with this enclosure and I'm done with this. I'm not going to use that cable. I don't remember which cable I had in here. I think it was this one. Put all this somewhere else. We'll come back to that another time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this NVMe drive out. Now, I suspect we're still going to see the same 1800 maximum speed on the read and writes, but I suspect that's a limitation of the CPU. Nothing you can do about it. If you don't like that, don't buy an N95 CPU from anybody. It's not a GMKtec thing. It's an Intel CPU thing at that level. That's how they entice you to spend more money. And you want to go faster, spend more money. Same in the automotive world. Same in just about every aspect of life. Want more? Pay more. I need my glasses because I can't see what I'm doing. Where's that tab? The tab is closest to me. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. I want to be over here. Probably helps if I use the right M.2 slot. There we go. Well, we do have a bit of a cushion here, and because the 4 terabyte drive has chips on both sides, the drive doesn't want to sit flush. But because the little cushion that's protecting it from the M.2 Wi-Fi card there, we can make it fit. Okay, so Windows 11. Let's see if Windows 11 will install. And that will tell us if it sees 4 terabytes or not. Okay, that's how we're gonna know. It's brute force method, pretty basic stuff. Gonna power that on, and we're gonna go over to HDMI input. And because this this NVMe drive that I've just plugged in has no partition, no format, no operating system, the system should have no choice but to boot to the Windows 11 Media flash drive that I've plugged in. And it appears to be doing just that. Whoa, that came up quick. All right. This shouldn't take very long. Install. Don't have a product key. Windows 11 Pro. End user license agreement. Custom. Hey, it sees 4 terabytes, so the 2 terabyte limit is not true. You can put a 4 terabyte. You could probably put an 8 terabyte. You might run into some heat problems, but you can do it. All right. So I just want to clarify. It does, in fact, see 4 terabytes. The 2 terabyte limit is no longer applicable, even though manufacturers continually keep spewing out the same thing. They need to get their information updated because they're really underselling their machines when they do that. Is there a free version of Acronis? You get what you pay for. If you want to get a free version, it's going to be very limited in what it can do. When you buy a new NVMe drive, a lot of them, except for Samsung, include a free version of Acronis that only works with that NVMe drive. It's a very inexpensive product. If it's something you find valuable, it's worth paying for. If it's nothing worth having, don't buy it. When you get something for free, you are the product. That means they're going to monitor you. They're going to watch what you're doing. You are trading your privacy for a product. I would advise you to avoid free products as much as possible if you value your privacy. You are the product when the product is free. You get no support with a free product. You'll get no help with a free product. You get no guarantees with a free product. If I were you, I would avoid free products unless you don't mind selling your personal information and you don't mind being the product, in which case you and I will go separate paths. It's very inexpensive to buy a Acronis, and it's worth it as a backup tool, and it's worth it as a cloning tool. So you get what you pay for in life. You want free, you're going to get free. All the problems that come along with free and all the privacy concerns that come along with free, and no help if you ever need it because it's free. All right, that it does our first boot of the Windows 11 installation, and so we're about to. At this point, we no longer need the Windows 11 Media. It's got everything it needs to finish the installation on the flash drive. But I'm going to leave it plugged in, and we're going to let it go through the process. It shouldn't take too long. John Scheige says the Intel website says the N95 has a maximum memory of 16 gigs. See, that's what I thought, too. So I don't understand how 32 is working in this, but Windows 11 is seeing 32. So I have no idea how that happened. Sue Cool wants to know, do I always run Acronis from USB? If you have Acronis questions, I would advise you to watch my Acronis video. We are here today to discuss the GMKtec mini PC, and I'd very much like to keep it on track to keep it focused on today's product. If you're interested in other products demonstrated on the channel, please search my channel of over 1,500 videos I've made since 2008 when I started this YouTube channel. And I think you will find almost any subject of anything you see on this channel covered no less than 3 times over the years. And I would look at the most recent one. Loghome says, I don't mind paying for software, but I don't like buying yearly subscriptions. Yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you. Technology is evolving at a fast pace, and without those yearly subscriptions, you're going to be hard pressed to be able to copy your data to whatever the latest technology is. Whether that's new generations of NVMe or new chipsets, new USB, these things require updates. Somebody's got to pay the developers to write those updates. So if we want to use an old piece of software that's out of date because you're not moving ahead, the rest of the world is going to gladly leave you behind. They won't even notice that you're not keeping up. So it's your own demise. If you're not willing to keep up and you want to continue to run old, outdated software, then perhaps maybe it's just not something you should be getting yourself into, because it's likely not going to end well. With subscription, you get support, you get critical updates, you get feature enhancements. And when things don't go right, you can, get help. You're not going to get that without people getting paid to help you. So if you're on your own and you never upgrade anything and you're never going to replace your drives and you just want it as a backup tool, it's probably not the right tool for you. I wouldn't recommend you buy it. I'm a technician. I have to work on everything that's old and everything that's new, and I have to do that sometimes in the same day. I can't buy one tool and expect it's just going to work and never get updated. That's preposterous. And it's cheap. It'll cost you less than $3 a month, for crying out loud. I just can't stand to listen to people complain about subscriptions when they don't even consider how inexpensive the subscription is, when they're wasting their money on all this other nonsense they justify. But that's just me. All right, United States. It's obviously not important to you like it is to me. Yes, that's all I'm trying to say. All right, we're going to skip the keyboard layout here. Just not doing a second language. Oh, it's going to force us to connect to the network. Okay, Shift F10. OOBE backslash, oh, where's my keyboard? OOBE backslash bypass NRO. I'm getting really good at this. Now that's just a registry edit. That's all that's doing, and it's going to reboot. Here we go. This should be our last reboot, I think. And then we'll run Crystal Disk Mark on it. Even though we don't have the drivers, I'm not going to go through that whole process of installing all the drivers, because I'm not going to keep this configured this way. I will put the original RAM and NVMe back in it, because this still isn't something for me personally, but I could see this as being a very good media PC for a home theater, or as a very good machine for a child doing, say, remote learning, that sort of thing. Why are we, oh, okay, yeah, we had to do this again because this time when we answer these same questions, we'll have the option of saying we don't have internet because we ran that command. See here, now we have I don't have internet twice. And then we go user, enter, enter. Location on, turn everything else off. And accept. Here we go. David Dix at Rock City PC says he uses Acronis at least once a day. It's worth every penny I pay, even if their prices go up. It's 100% worth it to me. I couldn't live without it. Yeah, but look, it's ridiculous that people bicker over less than the price of a gallon of gas per month. And they will buy things like junk food or other unnecessary items that they prioritize, but complain about something as critical as data backup or as useful as cloning, then don't buy it. I can't talk to people like that. It doesn't make any sense to me. If they had to go get a loan to pay for it, then I'd be a little more sympathetic, but it's so inexpensive I don't get it. Just do us both a favor. If you're that kind of person, do not buy that product because I don't want to hear it. It's ridiculous. And I also don't want to hear the complaints about how limited and unreliable the free stuff is. Because what did you expect? It's not, somebody's got to get paid to develop this stuff. Somebody's got to get paid to make it available to download. Somebody's got to get paid to make it to make a website, to keep it updated, well, we got a package arriving. So without any consideration for all the people's time and effort that went in developing the product, it's so selfish and it's so inconsiderate. You should write a program sometime and give it away. I'd like to see you try, because I bet you wouldn't do it. You'd say, if I'm not getting paid, why would I bother? That's my point. So at least if the price is reasonable, I think you're looking a gift horse in the mouth. All right, let's take a look now. We'll go to system settings here. And I just want to see, yeah, 32 gigs is there. And everything looks good. So let's take the flash drive. Let's eject that. And we'll grab the utilities flash drive one more time. That's my Windows 11. Was that UPS, FedEx? Who was it? FedEx? Oh, Silverstone sent some more stuff over. Cool. Okay, now let's get the flash drive, utilities flash drive in there. And let's go over here. We'll go to, testing software. Crystal Disk Mark Portable. We went to the movies the other day. We saw, what was the name of that movie we saw? Elemental? Was it $19 a ticket? And how much was the popcorn and drinks? 28 bucks. Was $26, and I had a $5 off birthday coupon. So I think total was 21 plus, how much were the tickets again? 19, and there was a $3.50 service fee. So it was like 50 bucks to go see a movie for 2 hours. That wasn't even that good. And for less than that, I could have got a year of Acronis and still had money left in my pocket to go eat at McDonald's. I'm just saying, see the world how we want to see it. What crap is that? Oh, packing peanuts. That's a snack for later. All right, let's see. I got a feeling we're going to be right around that 1700 speed here, because I think we're bottlenecking the socket. Yep, there it is. There you go. So that answers that question. Don't waste your money on a super high performance NVMe drive on an N95 based computer. But don't believe the 2 terabyte storage limitation either, although it doesn't really make sense to spend more on your storage than you did on your computer, but to each their own. All right, so I'm going to go back over here to camera 1. And if you guys have any questions about the GMKtec machine, if there's something you wanted me to look at that I haven't looked at, now is the time to ask, because we're now, about 2.5 hours into this broadcast, and I'd like to wrap it up. I like to keep them between 2 and 3 hours, and especially these budget machines, they do eat up more time. You're going to see that as a pattern. Higher end machines, we can get through all of this much faster, and the videos are shorter. The cheaper machines are slower. You're paying for it with your time. If you've got all the time in the world and no money, great machine. If you got a kid that's remote learning and you don't want them goofing around, this machine's going to discourage goofing around. Like gaming. If you want a cheap machine for the home theater, it's great. So for the right person, for the right use case scenario, it's a great machine, but let's not make it out to be something it isn't. Okay? It's not a $1,000 computer they're selling for $200. It never was, it never will be, and nobody is doing that. So I want to make sure if you're going to be in the market for a $200 or sub $200 machine, you fully grasp, regardless of who's making it, what you're going to get. Now, they may vary with regards to what kind of Wi-Fi or whether or not the RAM is soldered on, the overall design and aesthetic, whether or not the case is metal or plastic. And this has a lot going for it at this price point, if I'm honest. The fact that the RAM and the NVMe drive are socketable, even though you're very limited with what you can do about it. Single channel RAM, and the NVMe is only going to be PCIe Gen 3 times 2. We don't, excuse me, on a higher end machine, it's going to be times 4. And what that means is instead of 1800 megabytes per second, we're going to see 3600 megabytes per second, assuming you've got a drive capable of that. In this case, they're including a drive capable of that, and they're chopping it off at the knees because it's an inappropriate drive, in my opinion, for this. I'm losing my voice. I would have rather seen GMKtec put a cheaper NVMe drive in that's not as high performing as that Lexar. Take that savings and put it to a minimum 16 gigs of RAM. They shouldn't even sell this with 8 gigs of RAM, in my opinion. Unless you're using it for Linux, it's inappropriate for Windows 11. In my opinion, as a professional technician, Windows 11 should have a minimum 16 gigs of RAM. And I would have configured this differently. I wouldn't even offer the 8 gig version because I want my customers to be happy. And I'm afraid that's going to make customers unhappy. You saw how long a Windows Update was taking. That's clearly regarding the RAM. So if you're okay with that, have at it. And this is not an issue specifically with GMKtec. We have limitations regarding the processor. We have limitations regarding, losing my train of thought. We're putting a Windows 11 operating system, which is put on high-end machines, putting it on a low-end machine. So that low-end machine, we got to raise up what we're calling low-end in order to make that Windows 11 experience reasonable. But they do sell a 16 gig version. It's a little over $200, or you can do the upgrade yourself. It's very easy to get in there, and I applaud them for not, covering up the screws with feet that have to be removed, and I applaud them for, the metal case. I wish the bottom was metal because this would make a great heat sink for the NVMe drive, and they missed an opportunity there. The lid also has a place for a 2.5-inch drive, but there's no way to connect a 2.5-inch drive. So it's clear they're repurposing this enclosure for other machines, and that this is a carryover from that design that does not have any useful function for this particular design. Craig Casabona with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Craig. And do know that GMKtec make better equipped machines at higher prices, obviously. And I can't emphasize enough that we've got to set our expectations at this price point. So for basic web surfing, email, paying bills, it's fine. Home theater, fine. Remote learning, fine. Even remoting in to do work from home, it's probably enough. But if you want something faster and you want something more capable, you're going to have to open your wallet. And hopefully we'll see some other units from GMKtec at a higher price point so that you can see what you're getting for your money and that nobody's giving away anything. You are going to get what you pay for regardless of who the manufacturer is. All right? So the differences are going to be, again, whether or not the RAM is socketable. In a lot of cases of machines at this level, the RAM is soldered in. A lot of machines at this point will be SATA and not NVMe, so your speeds are only going to be 550 megabytes per second versus the 1800 we're getting here. So there's a lot of positive to see, but at the same time, after just reviewing a very high-end machine with a RAID 0 M.2 configuration, we've gone from one extreme to the other from yesterday's videos to today. And I do that on purpose so that people that look at yesterday's machine and see all that money and go, oh, there's no way I could afford that. Well, everybody should be able to reasonably afford a sub $200 computer. And, even if you had to finance it, PayPal would finance this for probably $30 a month or something ridiculously cheap. So it's very attainable. Pretty much anybody should be able to afford that. And now you've got a Windows 11 compliant machine that keeps you secure, at least for the life of Windows 11. If you're running Windows 10, support for Windows 10 ends in October 14th of 2025, which is still more than 2 years away. So there's no rush or concern. But do know that a machine like this, that deadline does not apply. You can use this well beyond that. Okay, so that I think will wrap it up unless I see any other questions. Richard Balmontier says, thanks for the review and the glitches. Yeah, it's all real. We do it all real here. Is there a big heat difference between 2 terabyte and 4 terabyte drive? Depends on how you use them. It depends who the drive manufacturer is, what the controller is, what the NAND chips are. In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. They're not all the same. They all run differently. Some run hotter than others, and it's not necessarily just related to capacity. So that's just not an easy question to answer. Richard says, good show, Carey. I was looking at one of these. Looks like it could do what I need it to. Perfect. Perfect. It's all about having reasonable expectations, and you should be very happy with your purchase. We got a lot of unreasonable people on the internet, it seems, and they act outraged like they've been taken advantage of when they bought something and had absolutely unrealistic expectations of what they were buying.
Show them how tiny that is?
Show them how tiny this is?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it? What should I put it in my hand? I mean, the flash drive looks huge. Flash drive is almost, I think it's pretty standard. I think most mini PCs we look at are pretty much this form factor, about 4 inches by 4 inches or so. Yeah. And quiet, by the way. I never heard the fan in it, so even while it was doing all the work, I could feel the heat coming off of one side of it, so I know the fan's running, but it's super quiet. And the more you spend on a machine, the higher capacity, the more power it consumes, the more heat it generates, the more aggressive the fans have to be. So you're more likely going to experience fan noise as you increase the budget, just so you know. There's no liquid cooling for these. There's no RGB for the, well, I shouldn't say that. They do have an RGB model, but it's no wonder how attracted I am to the mini PC when you think about all the things I hate that the market has changed for people that want to put hubcaps on their lawnmowers. It's insanity. So the fact that we've returned back to practicality with these mini PCs means no liquid cooling, no unnecessary egregious cable management for RGB lighting. Most of them have no RGB lighting, but there is one I'm getting that does, just because you can. But liquid metal's used on desktops too, and it's really, that's not, the thermal material that's being used has no difference on the end user because you're not doing it yourself. Who cares? Liquid metal cooling is really just for the high-end machines to help be able to run them at maximum frequency in such a small size where heat gets, there's not a lot of air movement in these. So anything that can help that, I'm all about liquid metal's fine. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with liquid coolers. I have a problem with plumbing. I don't want to do plumbing in my computer. I'm not a plumber. Do I look like Mario Brothers? I don't want to do all this ridiculous RGB and RGB software and all the glitches it has and all the cable management it requires. It's unnecessary, gaudy tackiness that's for 14-year-olds, and I'm not interested in it. So it's no wonder when you think about the appealing part of mini PCs for me is this kind of returns us back to the heart and soul of what PCs were always about, which is being a computer. If you want to buy a lava lamp, go buy a lava lamp. Stick it next to the computer. It's way easier, less cable management, it'll run longer, no software problems, no software updates to deal with, no incompatibilities. It just works, no synchronization issues. Just plug it in and turn it on. Keep your life simple, man. Save your money. I imagine the same people who complain about subscriptions probably have ridiculous amounts of RGB that they've wasted their money on, or some liquid cooler they bought that they wasted their money on. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a professional PC tech with over 30 years in the industry. I get called from clients, everyday people, and they do not represent the types of comments I'm getting in the chat room. I don't see that in the real world. Real customers that contact me don't ask me these things and don't have these concerns. So it's like two different worlds. You think you guys lived on two different planets, but the difference is those people have given me a career. Don't make a lot of money from the internet. But that being said, I'm not trying to put anybody down. Everybody's got their preferences. And if you want to spend your money on RGB and you want to put liquid cooling, hey, you have fun with it. I just prefer not to. I don't find any appeal of that in a career, in a future, or as a sound investment. But that's just me. Have I said too much? I'm cranky. I'm old and cranky.
Old and cranky.
Well,
About to be old.
here's the difference. When people hire me to do a job and I do the job for them, they pay me and they say thank you. When I make video content for free on YouTube, I get a lot of harassment. I wonder which one of these things is likely going to make me cranky. But everybody here has been very cool today. There's been a couple of comments, but overall, 99.9% of you have been fantastic in the live chat. I thank you for being kind and supportive. Check my email, they say. Okay, let me check my email one time before I go. James Presley contributes $2. He says, Christmas lights and water in a PC? No, thank you. See, it's not just me. There are other sound, reasonable individuals out there who understand water and electronics should not go together. Yes, Mark Gaines sent an Amazon gift card of $15. And Bob R. sends an Amazon gift card of $25. Well, thank you, Bob, and thank you, Mark, as well. Oh, and FedEx says my package has been delivered. Oh, that's useful. All right. And thanks to all of the Super Chat contributions to this video. That's why I can say these things that kind of shock people, because you're so used to watching paid commercialized content disguised as content creator content. It's basically watching a big commercial. Here, you're hanging out with a trusted friend who works in the industry, who doesn't have any paid sponsors to answer to, so I can be straight with you. I've got no financial gain, regardless of what I say, good or bad. I'm paid the same. So think about that. Think about the content you're watching and who's paying for it. When you guys support the channel, you know that my motivation is to speak my mind and to not be a corporate puppet. I do like certain corporate products like Acronis and RoboForm and those deals over at VIP CDK deals. But again, that's just based on you guys buying. It's a commission-based thing. So I think they're good products. I've gotten you guys discounts so you can save money on them. Those products are few and far between. There's some YouTube channels, they just offer everything. You look at their video notes and they've got 30 products listed. I don't do that here. I'm not a sellout, despite what you may have heard. Let's see. I was going to look at the contributions. Yeah, a shout out for the contributions for today. Alan Lindas, thank you for your super chat. And Planet Cryos. David Moore, thank you for extending your membership here. Paul O'Brien and Sarge Tech and George Schleicha, thank you for your super chat contributions. David Graham and Craig Casabona and James Prezi, thank you for your super chat contributions. Hundreds and hundreds of viewers and less than a dozen people contributing. It's amazing we can make all of this work. But thanks to the folks at GMKtec for submitting their machine for my scrutiny. Overall, I think it's a very good machine for the money. I think it's important, critical, that you understand what you're buying if you're going to be happy with your purchase. It doesn't matter if it's a $1,000 machine or a $200 machine. Expectations need to be set in order to ensure a happy customer. That's all I'm trying to do here. All right, that will wrap it up for me for today. Thank you, camera girl. Thank you for the thumbnail and for the close-up camera work. I am going to put this all back together, re-erase this flash drive, or this NVMe drive. I keep calling it a flash drive. This will go back in its stack for the other video. Tomorrow is a brand new product being released from a brand new company. Kind of new. They're called Zulu, X-U-L-U, and they have a product being launched. Wait, tomorrow's Thursday, isn't it? So no, I take that back. That's Friday. Tomorrow we have another budget mini PC from a company called BozGame. BozGame doesn't know anything about us. I've purchased the PC on Amazon so I can review it. This is what happens when companies don't respond to our emails. We'll just buy their product and review it anyway. So it's not like they're going to avoid a review. BozGame is a sub $200 computer. Probably going to be very similar to this, slightly different aesthetic. I expect similar performance and similar limitations, but also very, very affordable. Friday's my birthday. I don't want it to be. Can I put it off another month?
No.
I'm not ready yet. And that will be the Zulu machine, the XR1. You can Google that to learn about it. It's unlike any mini PC we've ever seen before. And I'm very honored to be one of the first YouTube channels allowed to make a review on it. So very much looking forward to Friday's show. I hope you'll join us. Both Thursday and Friday shows begin at 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. That's the normal time we start around here. I hope you will join us then. Thank you for your support and your membership. Thank you to my regular contributors. And thank you for my regular participants in the chat. My plethora of participators. My plethora of participants.
There you go.
Thank you for hanging out in the chat room with me. I will see you all again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Hope you'll be there. Until then, bye for now. And now I have to find another outro. There we go. Trying to think of something clever to say here because I already did the exit. Now this is all wonky. Thanks for watching.